Hello guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today you join me back in the shed again. The job in hand today is to replace the bottom section of fuel line in this KM 130R. So let's get straight to it. So the tools we're going to use for this job are a large flathead screwdriver, a small 8mm socket or deep socket on a ratchet, a pair of pliers, a T27 driver of any sort, and a smaller flathead screwdriver. So let's get into the process of changing the fuel lines on a Stihl 130R. So what we're going to do first is we're going to remove this cover. That's a 27 size Torx bit. And once we remove that cover, we can take the air filter out of the way, which then reveals the two 8mm holding the carburetor on. So we get our magnetic tray, keep the nuts safe. Then we can remove this cover. Be careful, you've got the tank breather pipe on that casing, so don't want to break that fuel line, well that line, sorry. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the carb so we've got a bit better access and you guys can see better. So first we'll remove the throttle cable. Easiest way to do this is to pull the throttle in, hold the linkage, and then the cable should just pop out. You can hook that out of the way, job done. So then I shall move you around and we will gently, with a flathead screwdriver, remove the top fuel lines. Won't be replacing these today because these have been done recently. And then the other one down there. So that's both the fuel lines removed. So now we should be able to pull the carb off. We have got the crankcase breather at the back, so just make sure the carb comes off of that line nicely. Right, so now that line's been removed, being careful not to damage the gasket, we're going to pull the carb off and just move that fuel line out of the way. So as this assembly is junk, what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to try and pull up with these nipples. And hopefully we should be able to wiggle the assembly out. So sometimes what you might have to do is put it on the floor, put your foot on the machine and pull up with a pair of pliers when they're really stuck. But as you can now see, I can lift my fuel line out. So what I'm doing is I'm inspecting it for any cracks. Now I can't immediately see any, but we're going to replace the line anyway, as I've got a replacement there anyway. So I don't recommend you recycle your fuel filter, but I'm going to have to because I've not actually got any in stock. So I will blow it through with my compressor, but like I say, you're better off replacing it while you've got the fuel lines out. But this one is fairly new, so if I had one here I'd replace it, but I don't, so I'm just going to try my best to clean it out with the compressor. So I'll come back to you once I've done that. So a little tip for those of you that also don't want to replace your fuel line, your fuel filter, sorry, is you can blow through the intake, and if you can blow through it easy enough, then rule of thumb, really, you don't need to change it. Right, so I'm back. Once I've cleaned my fuel filter, blow it through with a compressor. So here's a new part. It's a direct replacement of the old one. I will just take out the packet and check that it's the right size. For those of you that are interested, there's the part number for the fuel line. So we'll open this one up. Obviously, if you're going to use a knife to open it, be careful you don't go cutting the line. So this one, I feel like this one isn't actually the right one for this machine. Some of you may be able to tell me in the comments, but in terms of the tips, they are the same size, and I believe this is the actual right length for this machine. But I guess we'll find out when we run it. If it doesn't run properly, then I'll just put that down to fuel length line. But I do believe that this is a right length for this machine, and this one actually isn't, which is probably why I've been having the issues that I've had. So we'll take that one out of the way, reinstall our fuel filter back onto the new line. If you've got a new one, make sure to install your new one, not your old one. So then we shall go back over to the machine and we'll get this new one installed. Right, so here I am back at the machine. So all you want to do is feed your filter into the tank and your new line, and then obviously lining that tab up with the cutout. You can then push that into the tank. This can be tricky. What I do recommend is get a flathead screwdriver, and you can put a bit of pressure on there and try and get that on either side. There you go, it's just dropped down into place. Make sure it's seated nicely so it makes a decent enough seal. So then we're going to reinstall the upper fuel line and the carb. So like I say, now we're going to reinstall the carb. So remember which length fuel line goes on either nipple. So I know that the little one goes on the first, and the second longer one goes at the back. So then we'll bring our carb back over. This is a good time to clean your carb if you've got any issues with it. So we'll plug the shorter fuel line onto there, and then longer fuel line into its place, and then we can slide the carb, making sure your gasket is still intact, there's no dirt on it. If your gasket is damaged, I do recommend you replace it, because that can cause issues, other running issues. So by replacing it, it just rules it out. So we'll put our carb back on, and you want to make sure, like I mentioned earlier, that the crankcase breather reseats into the line, so that's on there nice. And then final step to reinstalling the carb is we'll bring that butterfly up, reintroduce the throttle cable into the holder. So there we have the carb reinstalled. So the final steps are just to reinstall this plate, making sure that your tank breather sits onto that nipple nicely. So we just push that on the back there, make sure it's on all the way. We can then push the airbox onto the two studs. We'll get our 2 8mm, and then we can thread those back on. As you can see, make sure not to cross thread them, obviously, because that'll give you more troubles. So we get our ratchet and we can tighten these down. You don't want to go crazy on these, but you do want to tighten them down enough so that the gasket is compressed. And again, it's always good to tighten them down evenly so that the gasket is compressed evenly and you get a good seal. snip them up. The holes for these two openings are very tight, so sometimes you lose your socket. There you go, they're tight. So what I do like to do is make sure that you're priming, which there we go, you can hear the fuel being drawn through. So then the final step, we're going to reinstall our air filter. I do recommend you give it a blowout or a clean before you put it back on, as you've got it off. Then finally you can place our air filter cover back on, again with a T27. We can tighten that up, and there we are. The old fuel line has been replaced, we've put a new one in, so now we shall fire up and make sure it runs. So like Steve Small Engine Saloon always says, never start your engines indoors. However, I do have a ventilation system and it's running on full, as you can hear in the background, so the camera might shake. However, we'll prime it again and we will choke it, and then so guys, there we have it. The fuel lines have been replaced on this 4MIX engine. Same process applies on any steel 4MIX engine with that kind of fuel pipe going into the tank. So that's job done. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and share this video with anyone that may find it useful. Thanks for watching.